I am 78 years old. For 50 of those years, I did everything right. I followed the one rule they told us would guarantee a life of peace. Save your money. Every decision, every sacrifice was a brick in a fortress I was building to protect my family from chaos. I wasn't just saving for retirement. I was stockpiling security itself. They tell you that time and money are your greatest assets. They are lying. My life's work, $500,000, is now a ghost on a glass screen, held hostage by a blinking red padlock. The fortress I built wasn't for my protection. It was my prison. The system I gave my life to has made me a fool in my own home, and the shame of it is an enemy I can no longer fight. This story isn't just about a bank account. It's about a life deferred, a promise broken. If you have ever sacrificed today for a tomorrow that felt more and more distant, leave a comment below and tell me I'm not alone. Pull up a chair and subscribe, because I need to tell you what happened when the fortress finally crumbled, and what I found waiting on the other side. There's a quiet humor in reaching the end of your days. You spend a lifetime building a fortress, you see, brick by brick. You believe with every fiber of your being that if you just stack the numbers high enough, the walls will hold. My life was a ledger, a long, careful accounting of a life I was always preparing to live, always deferring for a safer tomorrow. I was a man who believed in control, in balancing the books. Chaos, I figured, was just a failure of planning. Bad luck was for people who didn't save their receipts. I'm 78. For 50 years, I worked. I managed. I didn't just save money. I stockpiled it. Every dollar was a soldier. Every deposit a reinforcement against the barbarian hordes of chance and misfortune. I took a secret pride in it, a kind of fierce, quiet joy. When I was 45, our savings first crossed into 6 figures. I got the bank statement in the mail. I'd asked for a paper one, just to hold it. The weight of that envelope in my hand, it felt like a title deed to security, to certainty. My wife, bless her, never understood the feeling. She'd see a new set of towels in a store, thick and soft, and look at me with those hopeful eyes. And I'd say, "The old ones still work just fine, dear." And the hope would fold back into her hands in her lap. I told myself that this small sacrifice now was for a greater comfort later, that she'd thank me for it. The day it happened was a Tuesday. It was raining. The sound on the roof was like a slow, steady accounting of the clouds. I was in my study, the one with the old desktop computer. I hadn't done it in a while, but the habit was there. I opened the banking app, just to look at the number. $500,000. The final number. The one that was supposed to mean the war was over. I had felt nothing when I finally saw it. Just a strange, hollow echo. But I still looked. I still checked on it. My sleeping dragon of gold. That's when the first symptom came. It wasn't a pain, not really. It was more like a correction, a figure in the wrong column of my own body, a sharp, sudden pressure deep in my chest, as if someone had dropped a ledger book right on my heart, an unauthorized withdrawal. I remember thinking, indigestion. I tried to rationalize it, to account for it. I'd had a big lunch. That's all it was. A temporary debit that would soon be credited back. But the pressure didn't leave. It compounded. The interest was brutal. I tried to stand, but the floor seemed to tilt. The room, my small, controlled world of numbers and straight lines, began to curve at the edges. The sound of the rain grew louder, then softer, as if someone were playing with the volume knob. My breath was a debt I could no longer pay. The numbers on the screen in front of me started to swim. That beautiful, perfect number. My life's work. It was blurring, dissolving into a meaningless green smudge. I reached a hand out for the desk to steady myself, but my arm felt distant. It belonged to someone else. I could feel the fortress beginning to crumble, not from the outside, but from within. The commander was having a stroke. The king was dying in his own throne room. The last thing I saw was the light from the screen, that blinking cursor on a line of zeros, a tiny, rhythmic promise that had lost all meaning. And then, a great, peaceful darkness began to settle over the accounts. The books were closing. The ink was fading from the page, and I felt myself, gently, slipping away from the numbers. I was floating in a quiet, endless mercy. The darkness I'd feared my whole life wasn't an absence of light. It was an absence of pressure, of accounting. The weight I had carried in my chest, the terrible, crushing weight of that $500,000. It was just gone. The debt had been paid. The books were balanced by a grace I had never factored into my equations. And then there was light. It wasn't a light you see with your eyes. It was a light you feel with your soul. It wasn't shining on me. It was shining through me. It was the very substance of the place. And I could see my study. I could see the old man slumped in his chair, his face a pale, slack mask. The man who had spent a lifetime saving for a future that would never come. And I didn't feel pity. I felt a strange, boundless compassion for him. He had tried so hard, you see. He had just been using the wrong ledger. On the screen of his phone, that little red padlock was still blinking, a furious, tiny heartbeat in the quiet room. From here it looked absurd. A child's toy pretending to be a monster. All the fear, all the sacrifice, all the years I had traded for the number it guarded. It had no meaning here. The currency of this place was different, because the light was love. But that word, our word for it, is a pebble trying to describe a mountain. This love wasn't a feeling. It was a fundamental law of this new reality. It passed through me, and in it I saw my entire life, not as a series of events, but as a flow of intention. I saw myself at the kitchen table, telling my wife we couldn't afford a small vacation. I saw the quiet resignation in her eyes. I saw the bitterness I felt toward my neighbors for their trip to Italy. I saw the fear that made me check the balance on the computer over and over, my own heart beating in time with the market fluctuations. I saw it all. Every selfish, frightened, prideful entry in the book of my life. And the light did not condemn it. It didn't judge. It didn't even forgive, because forgiveness implies a debt. This light, it simply erased the debt. It washed over the ink until the page was clean. It saw the man I had been in all his brokenness, and it held him with a tenderness that unmade every number, every decimal point. It was a love that didn't need to be earned. You could only, finally, accept it. I turned from the memory of the man in the chair and faced the heart of the presence. There was no shape, no form, only this infinite, personal, knowing love. It knew every penny I had hoarded and every act of kindness I had withheld. And I was not afraid. For the first time, I was completely, utterly solvent. Then a voice, not a sound, but a thought that bloomed in the center of my being. It was a question, the only audit that ever truly mattered. It was spoken with the gentle authority of creation itself. Did you learn to love? The question hung in eternity, not an accusation, but an invitation. It was the entire point, the final entry. I had balanced my books, but not my heart. And as I stood there, with the answer caught in my soul, the answer of a lifetime of missed opportunities, the presence was not disappointed. It was patient. The voice came again, not with judgment, but with a gentle, firm redirection, a command that was also a gift. Your work is not finished. The lesson is not complete. There was a sense of purpose in the words, a new commission. Go back. This account is not yet closed. And just like that, I was falling, not into darkness, but back into weight, back into pain. The return was not a gentle descent. It was an eviction. The boundless, warm mercy of that light was torn away, and I was shoved back into a container that was suddenly far too small. The first sensation was the cold, a deep, sterile cold that had nothing to do with the temperature of the room. It was the cold of absence. Then came the sound, not the voice that bloomed within me, but a frantic, rhythmic beeping, a machine keeping its own frantic ledger of my failing heart. Another machine hissed, pushing air into lungs that felt like brittle paper. I was back in the broken vessel. The pressure in my chest was there again, but it was different now. It wasn't the terror of a final audit. It was just damage. The crude, messy wreckage of a body that had given out. My eyes fluttered open. The light here was harsh, yellow, artificial. It hurt. Everything hurt. My wife was there. Her face, etched with worry, was the first thing I truly saw. Her hand was gripping mine, and the pressure of her fingers was the only thing that felt real. I tried to speak, to tell her where I'd been, to explain the love that was holding the universe together. But all that came out was a dry, rasping whisper. She leaned in, her ear close to my mouth, her tears falling on my cheek. And in that moment, seeing her, feeling her touch, I understood the question. Did you learn to love? The lesson wasn't for the spirit who had been floating in the light. The lesson was for the man in the bed. The weeks that followed were a slow, painful crawl back into the world. They told me I'd had a massive heart attack. They called my survival a miracle. The doctors would come in with their charts, their numbers, their own set of books. They'd talk about blockages and blood pressure. I would just nod. Their numbers seemed so irrelevant now. Trivial footnotes in a much grander story. I had seen the final balance sheet. One afternoon, my son brought me my phone. I held it in my hand, this little black rectangle that had held my entire life's work, my idol, my prison. Out of habit, my thumb found the banking app. I opened it, and there it was, the number unchanged, and the little red padlock still blinking. $500,000. And I started to laugh. It was a weak, wheezing sound, but it was a laugh. All that fear, all that sacrifice, for a ghost, for a string of digits that had no currency where it mattered. I closed the app and have not opened it since. That account is still frozen, I suppose. It no longer concerns me. My real treasure was sitting in the chair beside my bed, reading a book, her presence a quiet warmth that the light would have recognized. So I sit here now, with you, a witness. My body is failing. I know this. The doctors and their numbers tell me my time is short. But the fear is gone. The panic has been replaced by a quiet, deep, abiding peace. I am not afraid of the darkness anymore. I know it simply as the quiet room you wait in before you are called in to see the face of love itself. Your own life, the one you are living right now, may feel like a struggle. You may be balancing your own books, fighting your own battles, building your own fortress against the chaos. You may feel the pressure in your own chest. But I am here to tell you, the fortress is not the point. The struggle is not the final word. It is the classroom. The real work, the only work, is to learn how to love inside the walls of your own life, to love the people who are with you now, to let your heart break for the beauty and the pain of it all. Don't hoard your love. Don't save it for a tomorrow that isn't promised. Spend it all. Give it away freely. That is the only account that will matter. The books have already been balanced in your favor. The debt has been paid. All that is left to do is to live as though you believe it.